on the agenda.
Other than going to work, it was always early and going to work.
That makes sense.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to open this Polk County Board of Commissioners meeting. It is 9:01. All commissioners are present. It's July 13th. Extra agendas are on the back table. Looking for comments not on this agenda.
Happy birthday, Dina.
Happy birthday, Dina.
And birthday, Dina. You know, we didn't have a meeting yesterday, so let's say the Pledge of Allegiance. Go ahead, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Looking for approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Looking for approval of minutes from July 6th.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And approval of consent calendar.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. Public Works update, Mr. Todd Whitaker. Come on up.
Mister.
Mhm.
Morning. Good morning.
I've given you the same notes stuff here that I have, and I tried doing something a little different, which is highlighting in red the things that have changed since my last update. I think was in February 1st or end of January, something like that. So you can just see the things that have changed since then. First project is Oregon 22 Kings Valley Highway. This is the roundabout project out at 22 in Smithfield, Kings Valley Highway. Really no change there since February. Estimated project budget on that is 11.4 million. Project entails a roundabout at the intersection of 22 and 223 and realignment of Prairiedale Road to connect in Smithfield. And in the last several months, through some negotiations with ODOT and local landowners, has changed the preferred alignment, the preferred realignment of Prairiedale Road to push it into a corner of the field, make a little bit better use of the field, so it's not such an impact on Maduri's. Other than that, not a whole lot is going on there. Next project, Orr's Corner to Plow Corner, on Highway 99. They're still involved in right-of-way acquisition and advancing their plans. It's still on schedule for construction starting summer 2024, and the budget is still 10.5 million. Oregon 22 safety corridor improvements. This is generally known as the 2251 interchange and backage roads. Phase of design is preliminary, and the really only change there is a combining of projects since we last met. Project 18726, which was Dokes Ferry Road realignment, which is our county project. The funding for that was combined with 18322, which was a state project for the intersection at Dokes Ferry Road. About $2 million was transferred to the 2251 project, giving them a revised budget now of 10.6 million for that. Next one, Federal Lands Access Program. We're still in right-of-way acquisition and permitting. We are waiting for final plans from Western Federal Lands. And I think they still have some adjustments to some legal descriptions that they're doing before we can send those on for right-of-way acquisition. Project budget on that still estimated at $5 million, but I expect that that's going to go up with the inflationary costs that's been experienced since it was last estimated. Local bridge.
Sorry to interrupt, but just a suggestion there when we're getting closer to construction to perhaps with AJ address the city council, because folks are quite sensitive to probably want to know about increased timber traffic during the winter months, if that's the case. Just just to get ahead of it rather than waiting for the community to react. Just a suggestion.
Okay.
Yeah.
You say before project gets started or just any
Anytime.
point in time?
Yeah.
Probably
I mean,
giving them a status update.
better heads up, the better.
Yeah.
The more heads up, the
Yeah,
better.
maybe we should try to put that on our schedule to do once a year or once every 6 months, just to keep them
Yeah,
updated, or at least AJ, and he can update his council.
right.
And you had said that before, that we needed to sit down with him and kind of do a review, and just
Yeah,
haven't
Life
made the
happens.
time for it yet.
Probably need to do the same for Camp Tapawingo.
oh, sure.
Just to let them know what's going on.
Yeah, I think maybe what we'll try to do is get that on our outreach stuff, our webpage, and then just, give them a link and say, here's where you can go and receive, up-to-date information on it. On local bridge program, we were successful in our application to get funding for the Helmick Road Bridge at the Lucky Mute River. That's a bridge restoration project that's estimated at $3 million. We've accepted that funding, and they also wanted to accelerate the project delivery by moving this award into the 21-24 STIP, so that then they could get construction done, hopefully starting in 2024 or 2025. They would do permitting right away in 2024. So we've told them that we're very interested in doing that. And that project will do some scour protection, bridge strengthening, deck sealing, and repainting of the bridge.
We have to replace the center portion of that bridge,
No,
just redeck it.
it's just sealing the deck and strengthening up the steel members, adding additional members where we need to get it up there. So in the meantime, that bridge has a weight restriction on it now, 14 tons, which is basically all heavy traffic is restricted there. So we're meeting with ODOT today for the second time in a week, because we talked to him last week and had an idea for maybe how to get legal loads across that bridge in this interim period. Because the problem is any truck traffic, and there's some truck traffic generation south of that bridge. If that traffic is trying to go north, it can't get onto the highway because of the angles that it connects, the helmet connects at, and the only place that there's a tie-in is where the road's really close to the highway, and you're essentially trying to make a U-turn. You just can't do it. So the concept that we're moving forward with now, they need to rerun some load calculations and stuff, is to make that a single lane bridge in the interim. Do some moderate strengthening things that perhaps we can do fairly quickly and easily. And then, because when they restrict the load on a bridge, they assume the same truck is driving opposite directions, passing each other on the bridge. So we restrict that to single lane, we automatically take that 14 to a 28. And what they had told us in the information was, you're at a 14, but you can probably get to I think it was a 25 or 26. Yeah, I think you can get to a 26 if you do these strengthening measures. If I do the strengthening measures and make it single lane, I should get to 52, which should get us in there to where we can get, our trucks, our 105.5s with truck and pups across there. And certainly that we shouldn't have any problem getting the 80,000 pound, general legal load for a standard semi truck. So that's what we're going to try to move forward with, to see if we can keep from impacting some of that truck traffic to the south. Next project is Fort Hill Road to AR Ford out on Oregon 22. This is an interchange project. The scope of the work is updating the environmental assessment for the interchange and backage roads. Schedule right now, we're looking for facility plan completion by next March, and design acceptance plans for the Kissing Rock phase of the project in September 2023. So what they're gonna try to do is take the funding that they have and get a design for one phase of the project, which would straighten out some corners on that Oregon 22 side that have historically been pushing trucks to use Grand Run Road. And so I think I agree with that approach. It's probably the only incremental thing that you can do that has any benefit. And so that's what they're we're moving forward with there. 2021 ice storm damage, we're done with that work. The project budget has been revised downward quite a bit because the slides got deleted from the scope of work. We found that one slide that we had, we were ineligible for reimbursement. Some rules that FEMA has, if the slide originates from above the road and covers the road, that's ineligible for reimbursement. If it originates downstream of the road and affects the road bankment, then it is. So not sure what the background behind that is.
Sounds like we're racist.
The one that was on the stream side, that project, the complexity of it started blowing up, and it's such a small project that we just said, you know what, never mind. Our share on that is going to be more than what we would spend fixing it ourselves. So we just deleted it. The good news is that because of, some of these other money things coming out of DC, they went from a 75%, from a local 25% match to a 10% match. So we get reimbursed 90% of that. So that's good. Our Public Works Building 1 preservation and remodel, we're probably 95% complete with that. We're finishing up siding on the building and then waiting for a generator to arrive. And then the project should be behind us. Grand Run North reconstruction is under design. And so we should probably be expecting design completion on that sometime early fall. Buena Vista Park Phase 2, I said bidding services, it's now, construction management. And we're basically just trying to provide support to the Parks Department on an as needed basis for that project, which is essentially going to be run by Oregon State Marine Board.
Quick note on that, Don,
Yeah.
and Matt and whoever. Some folks who live over there have talked to them, and they said that people are bypassing all the whatever barricades and stuff and using it and tearing up the asphalt, and just to make you aware that we may want some enforcement over there.
That's interesting because the asphalt's already tore up.
Yeah,
We literally have ground. That's the only thing that's been done there. We're waiting. People won't be able to go there anymore. There isn't a barricade up. There's signs up.
yeah, I think people are using it.
But come July 25th, well, part of that is the contractors backed work off because the high water was too high to work. So July 25th is when it'll get going.
Okay.
Isn't there a gate that gets closed after hours in there? No. Okay.
Up above, there used to be for high water, to prevent people from driving down.
But that's down the road.
Okay.
Not a concern. Sounds good.
There's not much to do about it right now,
Yeah.
but come a couple of weeks, there's no way they'll be able to use it.
Yeah, okay.
It's interesting. They said they tore up the.
Are you wanting to, after that last driveway, right before you go into that, or the exit for that parking lot? I mean, we can take barricades out there. If you'd like, we can barricade take some type 3s out there and put them in the lane if you want.
Where at? Right as you.
Right where you exit your upper parking lot.
Okay.
Well, no, because you
No,
still got
you-
Drazdovs down there.
Yeah, you can't. That's the problem with barricading. We have people that access
I
their.
can barricade it past.
Basically,
past
the only
Drazdovs.
way we can barricade is in the park.
I can do parking lot and right after Drazdov's driveway.
No need.
No, I don't see a need to.
Okay. Next project is chip seal. We're starting that next Monday. We're gonna do about 30 miles of rural and urban county roads. Rural is gonna be out in the Airlie, Maxfield Creek, Elkins, Helmuck area. And the urban roads will be up in Chattanooga Heights.
I see you've posted that on our website so people can find it. You got any questions?
I don't know.
Yeah, Brittany did.
Should have been.
What road you starting with, or do you know?
We're gonna start at the bridge on Helmuck Road. We're gonna come, actually, no, we'll start on Old Fort, we'll pull Old Fort out, then we'll take Helmuck from the bridge up to Elkins, Elkins down to Airlie, and set back at 223, take Airlie to Maple Grove, then do Maple Grove, Airlie down to Maxfield Creek, then Maxfield Creek, Airlie down to Berry Creek, then Berry Creek, Airlie out to the highway, and then finish up Helmuck. So. Next one, safe routes to school, Hoffman Gun Club, that's still under design. I need to get an update from Kittleton on where they are on that, because I haven't heard from them in a while. Still on schedule for construction, next year.
Can you refresh my memory on how far that extends?
It's gonna go from Monmouth city limits right there by the, just east of 16th Street. Down to Hoffman Road, so there'll be improvements along our road. And then at Hoffman Road, it'll go south on Gun Club Road, down to that cross street, I think is Meadowlark or something like that, that ties in with 16th Street. So basically completes curb gutter, sidewalk, pedestrian to the rest of that system. So that,
So this is connecting the newest housing development at the corner of Monmouth city limits to Gun Club.
yes, it would. Yeah. And then basically if you take that whole patch in there, you've got continuous sidewalk all the way around. And right now, we've recommended that we keep the sidewalk separated as it currently is, so we can keep a rural road standard on Hoffman Road with open ditch drainage. And, you know, the way it was designed originally, that one of the options was to bring that sidewalk out, put a curb there. And we didn't really feel like that adds safety for kids. It's all they gotta do is hop a curb, and at least having a ditch between the pedestrians on the sidewalk and the road, we thought added level of protection there. And then it also, that's gonna be a lower cost to do it that way. Independence wants to add scope to the project. They want to add a turn lane at Gun Club Road. Not a turn lane on Hoffman. They want to add a turn lane on Gun Club so that cars turning right will be able to turn right. They get a long queue there in the morning. Somebody's hung up trying to turn left, then they get a big queue behind them. I don't necessarily agree that we should be doing that until there's a traffic signal there. But the design engineer still felt like it was an improvement. So we'll go ahead and add it. The problem is, in my opinion, you get what you've got out here at Clow and 99. You get people competing for sight distance, and then somebody just says, well, I'm just gonna go.
Pedestrians crossing too, with two cars.
Right.
They're side by side.
Yeah. So
So who's design engineer thought?
Kittleson,
Who's working for us?
yes.
Okay. And so what's the cost share in these projects, in this specific project?
Well, there was a grant, and then the local cost share. Try to remember the split on that. I think that Independence had a higher share than the county did. But I'd have to go back.
Monmouth doesn't participate?
No, none of this touch. I mean, it connects with Monmouth. So, but there's no improvements inside the city limits of Monmouth. So total project cost under some phase of development right now is about 50 million in the county. And not that we're managing all of that, we just have sometimes major roles and sometimes very minor roles in all those projects. We've got some subdivisions that are under construction, one over in Monmouth, north side of the campus there. And then we've got a couple in Grand Ronde on McPherson Road. And so we've got some of our engineering techs that are kind of riding herd on that. We've got a stormwater mapping project in West Salem. We've done a bunch of the survey and stuff already for. I'm not sure exactly where we are on creation of the map, but I would assume that it's mostly completed by now. And then we've recently taken over stormwater from community development. So we've got a permit renewal that was completed early this year. And then right now we're working on the non-point source, which is a TMDL, total maximum daily load implementation plan, which is meant to reduce the discharge of temperature, mercury, and bacteria to the Willamette River system. So that's going to consist of developing a bunch of best management practices, doing outreach and education, enforcement, and construction site runoff control.
Is Polk County wide or is it a regional?
That's the TMDL is countywide.
Okay.
The permitting is just the West Salem stormwater system.
Gotcha.
We get caught up there because of the population. And so we're into an MS4, which is basically the same permit requirements that City of Salem it has to go through, even though we've got a collection system that's probably no bigger than Falls Cities. So we just have to get through it, and then we'll have some ongoing negotiations with them about whether we can make some adjustments there to size that appropriate to what it is. And I mean, some of our outfalls up there don't even discharge to water. They discharge to a field and have overland flow before they get to a stream. So it's a pretty minor system, but we've got some pretty heavy requirements that we have to adhere to. GIS tool development, no changes there, except to correct my spelling. We're doing some tablet documentation, and that just keeps growing as we find more and more ways of using that. It really improves some efficiencies that we have. Then our annual maintenance engineering projects, construction right-of-way permitting, road striping. A note on that, something we're going to be dealing with is the new MUTCD manual of uniform traffic control devices is the document that we have to comply with whenever we're doing signing or striping. And it's under revision right now. And the way I understand is the new version is going to require a 6-inch edge line, fog line. And the problem with that is for the past 6 consecutive years, probably, we've faced shortages in paint. And so during a supply crisis, they're going to increase the width of the line by 50%. And so I've talked to ODOT about that, and they feel the same way we do, that that's going to be a real problem. So they said our solution was we're just going to stripe less fog lines. There's just going to be some roads that don't get striped. And the odd thing about it is it's not even a required line. I think there might be an ADT limit to it. Maybe it's 3,000 or something like that. Doesn't require a fog line or something like that, but it's not a required line on certain roads. So we may just have to say, we're not going to stripe those roads.
So this is a new federal standard?
Yes.
Does it
Now the
apply on our
state-
county roads?
Huh?
It applies to our county roads.
Yeah. Yeah. So, and that's for a good reason. It's to make sure that our signage is uniform across the nation. You don't go from county to county and find that, oh, this county uses this ball banking standard on its corners, and that county uses a different ball banking standard. And so everybody from Benton County screeches off the roads in Polk County or something like that. So, but they have kind of done that a little bit in the last round of changes that they made. They did change the ball banking standard, but they didn't change how they communicated that to the public. And so now when the public goes driving down the road and they see a 40-mile-an-hour sign, you know, they used to think, well, I know I can take that at 55 miles an hour because I'm driving a sports car. Now 40 means 40. And if you try it at 55, you'll go off the road because they've raised the advisory speeds because of the cars that are being driven now have better suspension and stuff like that. But they didn't, I don't know that they did enough outreach. I know that ODOT said that they did some outreach to try to educate the public, but you know, unless you're out there being a traffic nerd and looking for it, you probably don't see it. And yeah, it seems to me like they should have had some billboards up there to, you know, alert traffic drivers and then make a physical change to the sign. So that said, well, when you see a sign that's a diagonal rider, it means this. If it's a square rider, it's the old system. So, you know, something like that would have been a great visual cue to educate drivers. But, you know, a lot of those places, they changed Highway 22 to 65 miles an hour over in the Vale area. And then they updated all those curve warning signs, and you go there and the asphalt's just painted black with rubber from trucks that come into it and realize that it's the new system, not the old system. And so they're sliding off the road and bouncing off the guardrails. Yeah, so we'll stay tuned on road striping.
I have challenges with this, and I don't mind the fight. And personally, I can make no sense of a statement from anybody that would say, well, we'll use 50% more paint than we did before. To what end, I don't understand. Versus and when you run out, you just don't fog line, which clearly is a hazard in our county. It's a hazard. I don't support it. I'll fight whoever needs to be fought on this issue, including the federal government. Take us to court. I'll take that.
We have an opportunity without fighting the federal government. So the way the system works is FHWA creates their MUTCD. It goes out for comment, and it's been out for comment. A lot of folks complained about that. So we haven't seen the final version, but we expect that that's what it's gonna have. If we can get Oasis to work with ODOT and get a united county voice for that in the state then issues a supplement to the MUTCD, and that's the standard that we have to comply with. So if the state changes something, it's good for us. And with the state, I think the state would support that because at least the folks that I've talked to there say they don't support the 6-inch fog line everywhere.
During a time of, you know, supply chain problems.
Right now, I mean, the big thing that makes the paint bright is titanium dioxide, and the market on that is controlled by China right now. And so whether that's going to be more or less available over time, I don't know.
Is a 2-inch wider fog line going to create any more safety? None whatsoever. I already have a warning.
No fog line, definitely.
I
Absolutely.
think that maybe what the impetus of this is with some of the new bells and whistles on cars that can, now we're not talking necessarily autonomous cars, although that's kind of the rumor, is that's where it's going, is autonomous vehicles. But I think it could also be just the sensor vehicles that easier to sense that line and give you a warning that,
Shock.
yeah, you're veering off the road. So maybe that's what it's about. I don't know. And we'll see. It's supposed to be finalized in December. We'll see where they're going with that.
It makes narrower roads though,
More narrow.
Mm-hmm.
which squeezes everyone into less room for error.
Correct. Which they say reduces speed.
Well, all I would
Make it
suggest
more dangerous, so it's, yeah.
in this, Todd, is that don't follow that until we all have a conversation to be able to talk about how will we defend our actions? Because to the people that we are responsible to, we should be doing the right thing.
Well, right now, we've been awarded an arts grant. Well, no, I take that back. We haven't been awarded yet. We're right on the bubble. Our project was estimated to be some crazy number above $1 million. We don't necessarily agree with that, but they do the cost estimate for us. So I got a call from them the other day. They said, you know, you're not going to make it. We ran out of money. You were right on the bubble and you fell off. Same story. But we've got some money here that we might like to give to you anyhow. If we can run it through the state fund local delivery project, we can throw it over the fence and you guys can probably deliver the whole project for the amount of money that we have is some $800,000.
The paint project.
Yeah, but that what the project was 6-inch edge lines on a bunch of roads. And then it was some ground in delineators. And we're still doing some investigation into that because we like the idea of the ground in delineators for the fog line. But since then have found information in MUTCD that says that's not allowed. And I could have sworn I've seen that in a bunch of places driving around, but I couldn't pinpoint which ones it was. It may have been that I just saw it on freeways, which is a different story. So, so we're finding out whether that's even possible to do, the ground in delineators. But I'm like, if we go down the path of that 6-inch edge line, then we're required to maintain it for at least 10 years. And so, you know, your edge lines get beat up the most because that's right where the tractor wheels sit when they're going down the road. And so and then also when we're pulling shoulders, you know, our grader blade really abuses it. And that's why we coordinate our striping with our shoulder pulling so that we pull shoulders and stripe it. And then it's 2 years before we get back to pulling shoulders again. So we always stripe it right after we pull shoulders. So if you go with these high-end paints and stuff like that, you know, cost a lot more and they're a lot brighter and they have better wet weather functionality, but every 2 years you knock the beads out of them with the grader. It may not be as cost effective. Center line's a different story. We've got one project that'll put some high-end paint down our center line on 30 miles of road or something like that. Other than that, some of the standard stuff that we do is listed there. Bridge maintenance projects coming up. We've got one on Savage Road that we need to do new caps. Tucker Road back walls. For some reason I thought we did Tucker Road back walls already, so that might be a typo. We need to do some back walls on Gooseneck Road and Gardner Road. A back wall is basically a wall at the end of the bridge that keeps the soil from eroding out underneath the bridge where your piles are. So a lot of bridges are built without back walls. We don't necessarily understand why, but a lot of bridges are built without back walls. So we find that eventually you start getting erosion up there, starts compromising your road bed and losing material there. You know, you can protect that a lot with riprap. But in some place where you get really high water and it isn't protected. And a lot of our bridges were built without the riprap slope protection on them. So we make our back walls usually out of used guardrail and then just basically weld them together and set them in behind, dig a trench and set them in behind. Helmet truss, like I said, has a 14-ton weight restriction on it. We're working around the Wildwood Truss Bridge is going to get a 32-ton limit for the SU6 trucks and the 34-ton limit for the SU7 trucks. We're not terribly concerned about that at this time because we just don't think that there's a lot of those types of trucks going across that bridge. The SU6s and 7s are basically they can up the carrying capacity of a truck by just adding more axles underneath it. So you see some of these trucks driving around the Dallas area that you look at them, they've got 5 axles under the back of it. And so that would be your SU6. And if they've got another drop axle behind it, then it'd be an SU7. And we just don't think we have a lot of that traffic down there. So we're not too concerned. Most of our heavy loads are being routed around that bridge already if they're going up into timberlands. And obviously tall loads are getting routed around it because it's got upper members on that truss. So I don't think that's going to be a huge negative impact. No status changed on the Independence Bridge. They're waiting for funds there. Incidentally, they had a scour protection project that they bid for this year and got no bids. Received no bids on it. It was just the unavailability of riprap of the size that they were specifying. So I think they're going to try to bid it this year, early fall this year for next year, to give somebody time to generate that material.
We've stopped making big rocks.
Mm-hmm.
Can't find any more. Used them up.
Airlie Road, Peterson Creek, we think that one's at risk of getting weight restriction on it. So we want to look into what members are doing that, creating the weakness there, and what we need to do to strengthen that up to avoid that, 'cause that's a pretty important freight route for us. And then Lucky Mute overflow, there's potential for a weight restriction there as well. We'll see. We thought we'd get a restriction on the Lucky Mute overflow on Helmick Road, which is one that has 20 timber bents in it, but that one passed. The Steel Trust didn't. So
That Elkins, are those, excuse me, are those Elkins bridges wood pilings or are they concrete?
I think the overflow is wood and the main stem is concrete.
Okay.
My recollection. So
They
that's
just
what
look so much alike.
I'm a little bit optimistic about the overflow, that it may get the same beneficial scoring that the other one did. That the helmet got hit because of the steel in it.
So you jumped over one, that's the Riddle Cloud Safety. No, I said that wrong.
Which one?
Yeah. What is the,
Oh, the arch project on Riddle and Clow?
Yeah.
I don't even see it on here, but yeah. Somewhere.
so you've
somewhere
written on
it's
here,
written.
Up to page 4.
Okay,
Happened this summer.
so yeah, that one we'll be constructing this summer. We're receiving parts and pieces for that now. And that's going to be one of the TRAWS light projects like they did out on 99, which is advanced warning signs when there's cars sitting at the intersection. And then there'll be some additional improvements on the Riddle Road signage that'll improve driver attention approaching those stop signs.
and so those flashing lights will be on Clow.
Wow, yeah. And so,
Should be something when those lights flash to tell everybody on Clow, you should slow down.
yeah,
If somebody's getting in front
When
of you.
this light flashes, you should slow down.
well, and I would like to, at some point in time to discuss a speed change, between Riddle and 99. Just to get people to, if they're only doing, the difference in severity of an accident, even between 55 and 50 is significant. And so getting those speeds down are gonna, in the future, well, I guess that's gonna be on the east side of the road, so it's not necessarily gonna shorten it, but in the future, they're gonna be needing to slow down, in approaching that roundabout, so
Get used to it.
yeah. It's probably an appropriate step down if you stepped it down to 50 there, and then when the roundabout goes in, they step it down to 35 or something, then I don't know, I'll talk to ODOT and see what their plans are, whether they do that with regulatory speed changes or just advisory speed changes.
Can I slow down Riddle Road heading north?
I don't know. That would be, just straight according to the speed study rules, that'd be difficult. But, when you've got new construction, then you've got an opportunity to do something, even though you have to come back and do a study later on to support it. I think if we did a study out there now, it probably wouldn't support a lower speed limit even on Clow. you know, because they look at 85th percentile. But as a safety improvement, I haven't asked that question before. ODOT is, you know, will you guys allow a lower speed? Lower speed, you're thinking all the way north or just approaching the intersection?
Approaching the intersection.
Yeah,
It seems like where most of the traffic comes flying through is northbound.
yeah. I haven't looked at the accident data there in quite a while. It really changed when we put those flashing red lights on top of the stop signs. I don't think we've had any serious accidents there since then, knock on wood. But what I remember the last time I looked at it is the majority of those accidents were stop and go. So it wasn't that people didn't recognize the stop there. They just did the bump go and didn't see somebody coming. Only other thing I didn't have on here, but ought to mention this is staffing. We're still short on staff. We just did a recruitment for road maintenance worker. I think we had 7 or 8 applications, and Heather was going to call and ask some questions on one. There might have been one that met minimum qualifications, but it was pretty disappointing turnout. And then we're down summer hires. We bumped the pay on summer hires, I think $1 or $1.50 an hour this year, and I think we had 4 applications or something like that, or might have even been less than that. And one of them pulled out or whatever, but we only have 2 summer hires. We wanted 4. So that makes us down a little bit. You know, going into chip seal, we're going to get some folks from Lynn County and from Benton County. I'm going to pull engineering techs and survey techs out of the office, and we've got 2 there with CDLs, so we'll get them in trucks. One of them came from the road crew, so he's pretty accustomed to it. The other one will run them in the sanding truck that just runs around and spot sands places. So we'll try to get by, but it's going to be a bit of a challenge. So that's all I have. Any other questions?
Remind me when the advisory speeds are gonna be increased. Iota,
Those are already done.
they're done, okay.
Yeah, so, and those were required to be in place, I believe it was last December. And so we got all of ours up to, I think what they said, and this was another thing that they did that I just, why would you do this? They said on roads of 1,000 ADT or above. So now within a county, you got 2 systems. And I just said, we're not gonna do that. We're gonna get, if we can, we're just gonna get all of them. 'Cause I don't want drivers don't know what ADT a road is. And it really makes a difference when it goes from the new signage to the old. You feel it on a 40-mile-an-hour corner, especially if you're in a pickup or something that's a little higher. They used to say, yeah, I know at 40, I could take that at 45. Now 40 means 40.
I'm one of those violators
Yeah.
who push it a little
Yeah.
bit, and I'm wondering if we should push out some messaging to the public somehow.
Yeah. Yeah, we can try doing that ourselves. And
I don't know.
I think ODOT, you know, I haven't read the email. They did send it to me and said, hey, here's the public outreach that we did do for this. And so maybe we can tie into that, connect that with our website or something.
Warning. Whether people will listen to it or not.
Yeah, I don't know. Some of those folks that sit around and write the MUTCD, I think they just recycle them from Microsoft. It's like, well, if you got a good product, break it until it needs to be improved, then you can sell it again.
We call it the new and improved model.
Yeah.
Great job. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Todd.
Next up, Secure Rural Schools. Mr. Greg Hanson.
Chair, members of the board, I think you have in your packet or on the computer, memo describing, what the county has before it. Basically, with SRS, you can elect to take SRS money or you take the cut. Historically, that hasn't, you just took SRS money because the cut wasn't there. For 22 and 23, there is an opportunity because of fires that existed and the cut could be a lot higher in taking care of that you may want to consider doing the cut. Estimates, at least in this memo, are that you will probably be equal to the SRS payment or maybe even a little more. But again, there is no guarantee. The SRS payment is guaranteed. It comes now in June instead of like October like it used to, but it still comes to us. We get about $700,000. We get as a county about 750, but Title II takes some of that. So that's between Title I's and 3. Title I is the one that we get the big chunk in, and it's with flexibility. Title III has restrictions to it. The other opportunity, if you elect to go with the cut, you will have the opportunity potentially to share in any settlement that the federal government has with the power company that generated the fire and that. No guarantee there's going to be a fight. It'll be litigated. Whether you see the money or not, don't know, but at least you're still in the game.
That'd be tied to the timber cut.
To be eligible for that, you would have to be part of the cut.
Okay.
If you make the election to move toward the cut, it's a 2-year election. You're committing yourself for 22 and 23. It's kind of like PERS, where every 2 years you get an opportunity to get ripped off. I would recommend, in my opinion, I don't see really any downside with going with the cut. I think that's probably where we should go for the next at least 22 and 23. I don't know when the money comes. I know that it's as late as possible with ONC. My guess is it comes from the same Treasury Department, so it'll probably be about the same time, but it may be sooner, could be later, I don't know. But the money will come and the cuts will occur, so I would recommend going with the cut. Craig probably has more information or more details on it if he wants to talk about it.
Sure.
I did the simple version.
Just so for the record, for anyone listening and for reporting, the cut means harvest receipts. So we have to cut trees in the ONC to get receipts. The market's good. The potential for receipts is higher than the guaranteed Secure Rural Schools Treasury check. And again, I think normally we wouldn't even have this conversation because we can't be certain of where the receipts are. And typically we haven't had an option to choose one or the other. So that's in this current bill for SRS. This current SRS bill is 2 years. And so just because we do it this time doesn't mean we'll ever do it again. However, the caveat is right now an argument that the BLM and the federal government are having about whether to sue the power company over alleged malfeasance and whether or not they'll even try to get damages under restoration. So the issue that we have at ONC is that if the federal government collects anything for timber salvage, that the same formula for harvest receipts applies to that salvage. And right now the feds are saying, nah, we don't see it that way. We'll just take it all and put it in the treasury. So my position right now as your advisor from ONC is also take the receipts. It's a net positive right now, it appears. And though we're not certain that we'll be engaged in any kind of settlement agreement with the federal government, if it looks like that's going to happen, we're going to go after that money. So if we take SRS, we've said, no, thanks. We're not interested in any other dollars. So I think it's important for us to keep our toe in the door and continue to pursue this. It is another one of those things that where the federal government appears to make up the rules as they go along on this. Now we're really confident at ONC that the power company is going to have a big fight. They're going to really put up a lot of money to stop this. So we'll see how it goes. But ultimately, we're just following the congressional act, I think, and just making certain that we're eligible for that. Could take years, but that's where we're at.
Was there any worry in ONC for movements to restrict harvest despite the damaged timber?
Clarify that question more.
So we're pretty confident that the yield, the harvest yield will be sufficient.
Oh, no. Oh, no. No, whatever yield we get that the BLM determines to put up for sale, that's what we get in receipts.
Right.
It's not based on a congressional act and what the law says.
Okay.
No, the law says you'll cut at least 500 million board feet per year.
Right.
Yeah, we're cutting 200.
Yeah.
Ish.
Okay.
So, no, we're not even close to getting what the law says that they're supposed to cut for a sustained yield management plan.
Sure.
No. But it is what it is. So we can either take the charity, the welfare check, or we can take the receipts. And I always try to lean to the receipts because it continues to purport. That's what we agreed to. That's what we should be getting to support our jobs and our mills. So one of the things that's always a challenge for me is we have counties out there that say, well, we'll just take the treasury check. It's like there's no job support in that treasury check, by the way. That's coming out of the general fund. So we're taking our tax dollars and putting it into the treasury to redistribute it versus the cut. That's actually jobs and mills and
It's tied to
taxes attached to the cut. So
I made the motion to go with the cut for these next 2 years.
I'll third it.
I don't think we have to do a formal resolution or that. do we?
No, I don't think so.
We just,
thumbs up.
We have to notify them, yeah.
We just did anyway.
Yep.
Let's go cut some trees.
sometimes they have to resolution, whatever.
No, I don't think so.
All that burnt timber up there just falling over and going to rot over the next 50 years. Now it's a safety hazard for those that want to go back up and hiking and anything. They're telling you can't go in there. There's trees falling over. And I see it all over the West Coast. It gets worse and worse each time. It's just unbelievable. And trees are a replenable resource. They're a crop, just like a wheat field. Do we have a need for an executive session?
Yes, sir. The board will meet in executive session pursuant to ORS 192-660 sub 2D to conduct deliberations with persons designated by the governing body to carry on labor negotiations.